The early morning silence over Seoul was broken by the deep thrumming that echoed across the city. Citizens stopped in their tracks, eyes turning skyward as an enormous silver vessel, sleek and impossibly massive, parted the autumn clouds. The ship's surface caught the morning light, sending prismatic reflections dancing across the city's glass towers. Dr. Han Ta-Won straightened his tie, trying to steady his trembling hands. As head of Earth's First Contact Division, he had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Now, standing on the newly constructed landing pad at Seoul International Spaceport, surrounded by world leaders and military officials, he felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The giant ship, nearly 2 kilometers in length, descended with impossible grace. Its landing created no sonic boom, no disturbance in the air, just that constant, deep vibration that seemed to resonate in their bones. As it touched down, the gathered crowd held their breath collectively. President Chen of the United Nations Security Council leaned close to Ta-Won. "Any last-minute advice, Doctor?" "Remember what we practiced," Ta-Won whispered back. "No sudden movements. No aggressive gestures. We are their hosts, but also their students." A seam appeared in the ship's seamless hull, spreading like liquid metal until a vast doorway formed. The assembled honor guard raised their ceremonial weapons, and cameras from every nation focused on the opening. What emerged made even Ta-Won, who had spent his career theorizing about alien life, gasp in wonder. First came beings of pure energy, their forms contained within crystalline structures that floated effortlessly through the air. Behind them glided creatures with multiple tentacles, their bodies shifting through colors like living rainbows. Most striking were the amorphous entities that moved like living mercury, their surfaces reflecting and distorting the world around them. The Federation's primary representative advanced, a consciousness housed within an ornate hovering sphere decorated with swirling patterns that seemed to move of their own accord. It positioned itself before the human delegation, and a soft hum filled the air as its translation matrix activated. "People of Earth," the sphere announced, its tone carrying an unmistakable note of condescension, "we welcome you to the greater galactic community. The federated species have voted to make contact with your world, despite some reservations." Ta-Won noticed the slight pause, the careful choice of words. He had spent years studying diplomatic communication, and already he could sense something was wrong. The alien delegation's positioning, their body language, or what passed for it, suggested they were speaking not to equals, but to inferiors. The sphere continued, "We must inform you that bipedal species hold limited positions within our society. This is not discrimination, merely a recognition of natural order." The words hit Ta-Won like a physical blow. He glanced at the other world leaders, seeing his own concern reflected in their faces. President Chen's knuckles had gone white where she gripped her podium. "Your kind," the sphere explained, its tone now almost patronizing, "has been observed for some time. You are considered unstable. History has proven this repeatedly. Therefore, certain restrictions must be put in place." The next words made Ta-Won's heart sink. The sphere detailed a quarantine system that would effectively restrict human movement throughout Federation space. Earth would receive some technological benefits, but would remain isolated from the greater galactic community. As the sphere listed the limitations that would be placed on humanity, Ta-Won noticed something else. The other alien representatives were examining the human delegation with what he could only interpret as amusement, the same way humans might watch animals in a zoo. The morning that should have marked humanity's greatest triumph was turning into something else entirely. As Ta-Won listened to the continuing list of restrictions and regulations, he realized that this was not a welcome to a community of equals. This was a cage being built around Earth, gilded perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. In that moment, watching the floating sphere detail humanity's new limitations, Ta-Won made a silent promise to himself. They would prove these beings wrong. Humanity would show them that walking on 2 legs did not make them lesser. The Federation had made a crucial mistake. They had revealed their prejudice too soon, and in doing so, had given humanity something to fight against. The autumn sun continued to rise over Seoul, its light catching on the alien ship's silver surface, while below, humanity's first step into the galactic community became something very different from what anyone had expected. It was not a door opening to the stars. It was the beginning of a struggle that would change the galaxy forever. Kim Ji-soo stared through the transparent walls of Federation Central Station, watching distant stars drift by like fireflies in the night. Her reflection showed the standard gray uniform all bipedal species were required to wear, marking them as cultural liaisons, a title that meant little in practice. The massive space station spun slowly, creating artificial gravity that suited the various Federation species. Ji-soo had been here for 6 months now, one of only 12 humans permitted to work in this hub of galactic politics. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling complex of crystalline structures and flowing architecture that housed representatives from thousands of worlds. The morning started like any other, with Ji-soo carrying data crystals between conference rooms. As she walked the sweeping corridors, floating energy beings and tentacled creatures glided past, barely acknowledging her presence. She had grown used to being invisible. It seemed to be the standard treatment for all bipedal species here. During her lunch break, Ji-soo met with Lee Min-ho in their usual spot, a small maintenance alcove overlooking the station's central garden. Min-ho had arrived at the station 2 months before her, and his experiences mirrored her own. "Watch this," Min-ho said quietly, pulling out his datapad. He had managed to access some of the Federation's historical archives during his work in the documentation department. "Look at these civilization records." Ji-soo leaned closer, careful to appear casual to any passing observers. The record showed a pattern that made her blood run cold. Dozens of bipedal species had joined the Federation over the millennia, and one by one, they had vanished. The official records listed various reasons: plague, civil war, natural disasters. But the pattern was too consistent to be coincidence. The Rax civilization, Min-ho pointed to one entry: 10,000 years of history, advanced technology, peaceful contact with the Federation. 20 years after joining, their entire species was gone. Official cause: a pandemic. The Luminera, 15,000 years of civilization, disappeared 30 years after Federation membership. Official cause: civil war. Ji-soo felt a chill run down her spine. How many? 23 documented cases, Min-ho whispered. All bipedal species, all gone within a few decades of joining the Federation. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of a hovering supervisor, forcing them to quickly switch to casual small talk about Earth's weather patterns. Once the danger had passed, Ji-soo found herself watching the various Federation species with new eyes. Later that day, while delivering reports to the Xenobiology department, Ji-soo noticed something else. The Federation's research seemed unusually focused on bipedal species characteristics, their physical capabilities, their neural patterns, their social structures. But the research wasn't aimed at understanding. It felt more like threat assessment. In her quarters that evening, Ji-soo began compiling her own secret database. She recorded every interaction, every overheard conversation, every small detail that might help explain the Federation's apparent fear of bipedal species. The work was dangerous. Unauthorized data collection could result in immediate expulsion from Federation space or worse. During her evening shift, while serving refreshments at a high-level diplomatic meeting, Ji-soo overheard 2 energy beings discussing Earth. Their translators were active, but they seemed to think she couldn't understand their complex technical language. "The humans show concerning patterns," one said. "Their adaptation rate exceeds previous models. The containment protocols are in place." The other responded, "They will not exceed parameters." Ji-soo maintained her passive expression, but her mind was racing. That night, she met Min-ho in their secure location again. "We need to warn Earth," she said. "Whatever happened to those other species, It's going to happen to us too. We can't send direct communications, Minho replied. Everything is monitored. But I might have found something. He showed her an old maintenance network, apparently forgotten by the Federation's current administration. If we can reactivate it, we might have a secure channel. As they worked late into the station's night cycle, Jisoo couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Federation's seemingly benevolent facade had cracks, and through those cracks, she could see something dark and frightening. The question wasn't just why the Federation feared Bipedal species, it was what they had done about that fear in the past, and what they planned to do about it in the future. The stars continued their eternal dance outside the station's walls, while inside, two humans began the dangerous work of uncovering a conspiracy that spanned thousands of years and dozens of extinct civilizations. Time was not on their side, but they had something the Federation didn't expect: the determination that came from fighting for survival. Park Sung-min's hands trembled as he examined the ancient neural scanner. The Federation's research facility on Europa was meant to study primitive technology, but what he had found changed everything. The quiet hum of quantum computers filled the laboratory as he cross-referenced his findings for the 100th time. The device in front of him, recovered from the ruins of a long-dead Bipedal civilization, held secrets that the Federation had buried for millennia. Sung-min had spent 3 months decoding its data crystals, working late into the night while his non-Bipedal supervisors were away. Through the laboratory's ice crystal windows, Jupiter's massive form filled half the sky. Sung-min remembered his first day here, how proud he had felt to be chosen as one of the few humans allowed to work with advanced Federation technology. Now that pride had turned to something else, a creeping fear mixed with burning determination. The neural scanner's display pulsed with soft blue light as it revealed its secrets. The ancient device had originally been designed to map brain patterns, and its database contained detailed scans of various species. What caught Sung-min's attention was the unique structure of Bipedal brains. When the security door chimed, Sung-min quickly switched his display to show routine particle physics data. Jisoo and Minho entered, both wearing the standard gray uniforms of cultural liaisons. "We came as soon as we got your message," Jisoo said, looking nervously at the security cameras. Sung-min held up a small device, a signal scrambler he had built from spare parts. "We're safe to talk," he said, leading them to his workstation. "Look at this." He pulled up the neural mapping data, showing them complex patterns of neural pathways. The blue patterns are from various Federation species. The red ones are from Bipedal species. Minho leaned closer. "They're completely different." "Exactly," Sung-min said, his voice quiet but intense. "Bipedal species developed under specific evolutionary pressures. We had to balance on 2 legs, calculate trajectories for throwing objects, track moving prey across varying terrain. Our brains evolved to handle complex spatial relationships and predict movement patterns." He showed them more scans. "These neural pathways don't just help us walk, they give us superior tactical thinking and spatial awareness. Our brains process information in 3-dimensional space differently than any other species in the Federation." Jisoo's eyes widened as she understood. "That's why they fear us." Sung-min nodded, bringing up more data. "I found references to military encounters with Bipedal species in the ancient records. In space combat situations, Bipedal species consistently outperformed Federation forces. Our natural ability to think in 3 dimensions gave us an advantage they couldn't counter. But surely technology could overcome that advantage," Minho said. "That's just it," Sung-min replied. "Federation technology is designed by beings that think differently than we do. They rely on computer systems to handle spatial calculations that come naturally to us. In crisis situations, when systems fail, their natural limitations become apparent." He showed them another set of data, this time from his own research. "I've been secretly running comparisons. Human children can catch a thrown ball, calculating its trajectory, speed, and point of impact instantly. Most Federation species need computational assistance for the same task. The implications were staggering. The Federation hadn't been protecting itself from primitive species. It had been eliminating potential rivals. Every bipedal civilization that showed promise had mysteriously vanished, their destruction carefully engineered to look natural. "There's more," Sung Min said, his voice dropping even lower. "I found evidence of an active program. They're developing something to use against Earth. I don't know the details yet, but based on the patterns from previous extinctions, we don't have much time." Jisoo shared a concerned look with Minho. "How do we warn Earth without alerting the Federation?" "I have an idea," Sung Min said, pulling out a small crystal. "I'd modified this data crystal with a quantum encryption algorithm based on human neural patterns. Federation systems won't be able to decode it because their computers don't think like we do. But any human quantum physicist will understand it instantly." The three stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their discovery heavy in the air. Through the window, Jupiter's great red spot stared at them like an unblinking eye, while inside the laboratory, three humans contemplated a truth that could save their species, or doom them if they were discovered. "We're not primitive at all," Jisoo said softly. "We're just different, and that difference makes us dangerous to them." Sung Min nodded, carefully securing the encrypted crystal. "The question is, can we find a way to use this knowledge before the Federation realizes what we've discovered?" The facility's lights dimmed slightly as Europa entered Jupiter's shadow, casting long shadows through the laboratory. In that darkness, three humans began planning how to save their species from a fate that had already claimed so many others. The maintenance tunnels of Federation Central Station were never meant for bipedal use. As Jisoo crawled through the narrow service duct, she reflected on how this had become an advantage. The Federation's floating and tentacled species never bothered to monitor these spaces. They simply couldn't access them comfortably. She reached the forgotten data hub that had become their secret meeting place. The small room, filled with old machinery, hummed with the soft pulse of quantum transmitters that Earth's programmers had carefully modified. Here, hidden beneath layers of bureaucracy and forgotten technology, a revolution was taking shape. A tall, graceful figure waited in the shadows. Now, a representative of the Halshi people stepped into the dim light. The Halshi were beautiful beings, their silvery skin catching even the faintest light. Like humans, they walked on two legs, though they moved with an almost floating grace that made Jisoo think of dancers. "The northern colonies have agreed," Nal whispered, her translator barely audible. "They will support the alliance when the time comes." Jisoo nodded, making notes on her secure tablet. The Halshi had been among the first to join their cause, their own bitter experiences with Federation oppression making them eager allies. Their outer rim territories would provide crucial safe havens for the growing resistance. A soft chime indicated another arrival. Keth, a stocky representative of the Nai species, emerged from a different tunnel. The Nai were shorter than humans, but powerfully built, their thick-set frames adapted to their high-gravity homeworld. Despite their intimidating appearance, they were known for their keen minds and technological skill. "My people have completed the modifications to the communication network," Keth reported. "We can now share information without the Federation's knowledge." Over the next hour, they discussed their growing alliance. 2 years of careful planning had created a web of connections between bipedal species throughout Federation space. Each group brought unique strengths: the Halshi's vast trading networks, the Nai's technical expertise, humanity's tactical thinking. A message arrived from Tadawon, now serving as Earth's senior representative. He had managed to arrange another secret meeting of bipedal species leaders disguised as a cultural exchange program. The Federation's dismissive attitude toward primitive species worked in their favor. No one questioned why bipedal representatives might want to meet and share their simple customs. "The Federation grows more suspicious," Nal said, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light. "They have increased monitoring of all bipedal worlds." "They sense something," Keth agreed. "But they cannot imagine us working together. Their prejudice blinds them." Jisoo pulled up the latest intelligence reports on her tablet. Our window of opportunity is shrinking. The Federation's suppression program is accelerating. They're particularly concerned about Earth's rapid technological advancement. The three representatives studied the data together, each adding their own species observations. A pattern emerged. The Federation was preparing something big, though its exact nature remained unclear. "We need more allies," Jisoo said finally. "There are other Bipedal species who haven't joined us yet. Some fear Federation reprisal too much." "Fear keeps us divided," Nell responded. "But hope brings us together." Their meeting concluded as it always did, with careful departures timed minutes apart. As Jisoo waited for her turn to leave, she reviewed their progress. 23 Bipedal species had now joined their alliance. Each had suffered under Federation rule, treated as lesser beings despite their achievements and capabilities. Back in her quarters, Jisoo encoded the day's information into a secure message for Earth. The Federation's communication networks carried it, buried within routine transmissions about trade and cultural exchange. To any observer, it would appear to be nothing more than boring bureaucratic reports. As she prepared for sleep, Jisoo caught her reflection in the window. Behind her, the vast expanse of space stretched endlessly, filled with stars and worlds. Somewhere out there, millions of Bipedal beings were quietly preparing for a day of reckoning. The Federation had spent millennia keeping Bipedal species isolated, afraid, and dependent. They never imagined that their oppression would forge bonds stronger than any alliance built on power or fear. In trying to keep Bipedal species down, they had given them a common cause, a shared purpose. The next morning, Jisoo would return to her role as a simple cultural liaison, playing the part of a compliant servant. But in the hidden spaces between official duties, she and others like her would continue building something unprecedented. A union of the overlooked and underestimated that would reshape the galaxy. Some men watched in amazement as the human test subject completed another lap around the testing chamber. 2 hours of continuous running, and she showed no signs of stopping. The Federation observers seemed puzzled, their floating forms clustering together as they made notes on their datapads. "Remarkable endurance," one commented through its translator, though hardly useful in an advanced society. Some men kept his expression neutral, but inside he was smiling. The Federation's dismissal of Bipedal capabilities had become their greatest advantage. In their arrogance, they saw only primitive creatures struggling to compete with advanced technology. Later that day, in his private laboratory, some men reviewed the complete data from his research. The human body, evolved over millions of years, was a masterpiece of adaptation. While Federation species relied on artificial means for almost everything, humans could naturally perform complex tasks with minimal technological assistance. The testing chamber's recordings showed humans throwing objects with incredible accuracy, climbing surfaces that Federation species found impossible to navigate, and maintaining balance in situations that would leave most alien species helpless. Their hand-eye coordination, refined through millennia of tool use, surpassed anything the Federation's mechanical systems could achieve. Minho arrived just as Sung Min was compiling his latest findings. "The new designs are ready," he said, producing a small data crystal. "Earth's engineers have been busy." Together, they reviewed the blueprints. The new technology was brilliant in its simplicity. Devices designed to enhance natural Bipedal abilities rather than replace them. While Federation ships required complex AI systems for spatial navigation, the new human vessels used intuitive controls that worked with their natural spatial awareness. "Look at this," Minho said, pulling up another design. "Combat suits that amplify our natural movement patterns instead of restricting them." The Federation's battle armor is designed for floating species. They never considered how a Bipedal frame could be used effectively. The research facility's quiet hum was broken by the arrival of a Federation supervisor. The two humans quickly switched their displays to show standard research data, playing their roles as dutiful servants of advanced civilization. After the supervisor left, Sung Min shared his latest discovery. "Our adaptability isn't just physical, he explained. Human brains form new neural pathways faster than any species in the Federation. While they rely on programming and fixed responses, we can improvise and learn from experience in real time. The implications were staggering. Federation species had become so dependent on their technology that they had lost their ability to adapt. Their civilizations had stagnated, hidden behind a veneer of advanced technology. In a secret facility back on Earth, engineers were already putting these insights to use. They developed training programs that enhanced natural human abilities instead of replacing them. While the Federation focused on creating ever more complex automated systems, humans were learning to combine their natural capabilities with selective technological enhancement. They think we're trying to catch up to their level of technology, Minho said, watching a simulation of the new combat systems. They don't understand that we're developing something completely different. The Federation's overconfidence had created a blind spot. They'd monitored human progress in terms of how well Earth could copy their technology, never considering that humans might develop along a different path entirely. As evening approached, some men received an encrypted message from Jisoo. More bipedal species were joining the alliance, each bringing their own unique evolutionary advantages. The Halshi's natural agility, the Naid's raw strength, humanity's endurance. Together, they were creating a force that played to their collective strengths. The Federation sees our physical form as a limitation, some men said, watching another test subject demonstrate incredible fine motor control. They don't understand that walking on two legs forced our brains to develop in ways their species never needed to. The day's last light filtered through the facility's windows, casting long shadows across the laboratory. Outside, Federation ships moved in their precise, programmed patterns, their crews relying entirely on computer guidance for navigation. Inside, two humans continued their work, knowing that every discovery brought them closer to proving what the Federation feared most, that the ability to stand upright and adapt was not a weakness to be overcome, but a strength that could change the course of galactic history. The lights in Federation Central Station flickered once, twice, then died completely. In the sudden darkness, Jisoo moved with purpose through the maintenance tunnels she had mapped over the past 3 years. Around her, chaos erupted as the station's automated systems failed one by one. The Federation's mighty computer networks, pride of their civilization, had met an enemy they never expected. Simple physical switches and mechanical controls, while alien species floated helplessly in the dark, unable to interface with their dead systems. Bipedal beings moved swiftly through the shadows. Section 4 secure, came a whispered report from Keth, the Nye commander. His people had taken control of the station's power core within minutes, their powerful bodies easily handling the manual override systems. Jisoo reached the central control room, where Federation officials drifted in confusion. Their hover platforms, dependent on the main computer network, had stopped working. The mighty rulers of the galaxy found themselves literally powerless. Meanwhile, across Federation space, a carefully coordinated plan unfolded. The Halshi shut down trade routes using old-fashioned mechanical locks. Human crews, trained in three-dimensional combat, engaged Federation ships with tactics that no computer could predict. From his position on Earth, Taiwan addressed the neutral species. "The Federation has hidden the truth for too long," he announced across emergency channels. "Today we show the galaxy that diversity breeds strength, not weakness." Back on the station, Jisoo watched as Federation ships tried to respond to the crisis. Their crews, accustomed to letting computers handle everything, struggled with basic manual controls. The mighty warships moved in predictable patterns, their tactics limited by programming that had never needed to account for human unpredictability. "They're deploying security forces to Level 3, Minho reported through their secure communication system. "But they can't access the maintenance tunnels. Our people are moving freely while they're stuck in the main corridors." The rebellion had been years in planning. While the Federation watched for high-tech attacks, They never considered that their downfall would come from beings who could simply climb through air ducts and rewire control panels by hand. Federation troops, equipped with advanced weapons that needed computer targeting, found themselves outmaneuvered by bipedal soldiers using simple projectile weapons and hand-to-hand combat skills. Their floating combat platforms, useless without power, became obstacles rather than advantages. In orbit around keyed Federation worlds, ships commanded by human and other bipedal captains demonstrated the difference between computer-calculated tactics and true spatial thinking. They used gravity wells and stellar phenomena in ways that the Federation's combat computers had never been programmed to understand. "The outer rim sectors are secured," reported Nell from her command post. The Halshi fleet had moved with dancer-like grace through asteroid fields that Federation ships wouldn't dare enter without computer guidance. Hour by hour, the carefully maintained order of the Federation crumbled. Their technology, designed to rule the galaxy, proved vulnerable to beings who could think and move independently of computer control. Taiwan's diplomatic efforts bore fruit as neutral species, seeing the Federation's weakness exposed, began declaring their support for the rebellion. Many had watched silently for years as bipedal species were suppressed, and now they chose to stand with the rising new order. As the station's emergency lights finally flickered on, Jisoo stood in the central control room, surrounded by Federation officials who now found themselves dependent on the very beings they had dismissed as primitive. Their expressions showed the dawning realization that they had built their empire on a fundamental misunderstanding of strength. The revolution that would reshape the galaxy had succeeded not through superior technology, but through the very capabilities the Federation had dismissed: adaptability, physical skill, and the ability to think beyond programmed responses. In the days that followed, as order was restored under new leadership, the Federation's mighty ships remained docked, their computers still offline. The bipedal species, once considered primitive, had proven that true advancement came not from replacing natural abilities with technology, but from combining them in harmony. The stars shone unchanged above Federation's central station, watching as the galaxy's balance of power shifted, not with the bang of massive weapons, but with the quiet footsteps of beings who had finally claimed their rightful place among the stars. The rebuilt Federation Council chamber sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Gone were the floating platforms and hovering seats that had once filled the space. Now beings of all forms gathered together on a level floor, symbolic of the new equality that governed galactic society. Jisoo adjusted her formal diplomatic robes as she took her place at the circular table. Around her sat representatives from hundreds of worlds, floating energy beings, tentacled entities, and bipedal species of all shapes and sizes. The chamber hummed with dozens of languages, translation matrices working to ensure every voice could be heard. 1 year had passed since the uprising that changed everything. The scars of that time were still visible in the chamber's architecture, where simple mechanical controls now sat alongside advanced technology. The Federation had learned a hard but necessary lesson about the dangers of over-reliance on complex systems. The former Federation leader, a consciousness housed in a crystal matrix, moved to the center of the chamber. Their voice, once filled with condescension, now carried a tone of humility. "Let the historical record show that on this day, we acknowledge our past errors. The suppression of bipedal species was not just morally wrong. It weakened our entire civilization." Taiwan, seated beside Jisoo, opened the new Galactic Charter. The document had taken months to craft, with input from every species in known space. Its first article declared that diversity in form and thought was the foundation of galactic strength. "Our fear of difference led us to waste countless opportunities," the former leader continued. "We forgot that evolution takes many paths, and each path brings its own wisdom." Around the chamber, members of formerly suppressed species sat proudly alongside their once oppressors. The Halshi delegation's silvery skin caught the light as they moved with characteristic grace. The powerful Nai sat comfortably in chairs designed to accommodate their sturdy frames. Min Ho, now Earth's chief technological advisor, demonstrated the new integrated control systems that combined Federation technology with natural bipedal capabilities. We don't need to choose between biological ability and technological advancement, he explained. True progress comes from embracing both. Sung Min presented his research, no longer hidden in secret laboratories, but shared openly for the benefit of all species. His studies of bipedal neural patterns had led to breakthroughs in understanding how different species could complement each other's strengths. As Ta Wen signed the charter, he paused to look around the chamber. The gallery above was filled with observers from countless worlds, many seeing the Federation Council for the first time. The old restrictions on access had been lifted, replaced by a policy of radical transparency. We stand here today, not as victors over the old Federation, Ta Wen said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, but as architects of a new way forward. Our victory was not in defeating our oppressors, but in showing them a better path. Jisoo watched as representatives from every species came forward to add their signatures to the charter. Each signing was unique. Some used traditional implements, others pressed appendages into special sensors, while energy beings left distinctive quantum signatures. The chamber's great windows showed the vast expanse of space beyond, filled with stars that now promised opportunity rather than restriction. Ships of all designs moved through the lanes around the station, their crews working together regardless of physical form. As the signing ceremony concluded, Jisoo remembered those first days aboard the station, when she had felt like little more than a servant. Now she sat as an equal among the galaxy's leaders, proof that change was possible when beings of all kinds worked together. The new era brought challenges of its own, but they were the challenges of cooperation and understanding rather than suppression and fear. The galaxy had learned that true civilization meant celebrating differences rather than fearing them. As the three suns set on the first day of the new Federation, their light caught the crystal walls of the chamber, creating a rainbow of colors. Like those varied lights, the gathered species represented not a weakness to be controlled, but a spectrum of strength that would carry them all forward into a brighter future.